Hey, this is Jeff Bond, and welcome to the Chat with Leaders podcast. We're a platform for leaders to share the inspiring things they're doing to lead themselves, their teams, and the communities they serve wisely. In today's episode, I'm interviewing Walt Carter, Chief Digital Officer and CIO at Homestar Financial Corporation out of Atlanta, Georgia. Walt brings over 25 years in technology leadership roles and specializes in alignment to purpose and technology innovation. After earning a bachelor's degree in physics, he began a career as a technical officer in the U.S. Air Force and has spent the majority of his career working through complex business challenges and successfully implementing enterprise-wide packaged software solutions. He's also a frequent speaker to professional groups on the topics of leadership, governance, risk management, and compliance. He's been named to various honors, including Corporate CIO of the Year, President's Club, and has been named as a member of the Business Transformation 150 for 2020 by Constellation Research. We chat about the false narrative that executive leaders have everything figured out and why that exists. We talk about his experience with Higher Gear CIO in Atlanta and why it was created as a safe haven for executive leaders to openly discuss their challenges. We talk about why it's been instrumental to his growth and how it's been meaningful to him as an active participant, and why forming community versus competition is important for executive leaders that are in the same geographic market. Lastly, we talk about what storing up your treasures in heaven means to Walt and how it informs how he uses his opportunity to influence as a leader. I hope you really enjoy this episode with Walt Carter. Welcome to Chat with Leaders, Walt.
Hey, Jeff, good to be with you today.
It's such a gift and an honor. I'm so happy to have you on. What you're doing in the community is inspiring, and I'm so glad that my show co-host and partner Tim Smith put us in touch. So thank you again for being with us.
My pleasure, and again, great to be connected to you now, Jeff, and again, Tim's an old friend, and I've been fond of him for a long time. So glad to make your acquaintance, and glad to be part of the show.
Absolutely. Well, I'm really excited to talk about what we set out to today, which is leaders helping other leaders shift into a higher gear. My thought is that, particularly at the executive level, leaders are often thought to have it all figured out, but what a false narrative that is. A lot of the times, the decisions that executive leaders are making are net new decisions that they've never had to make before, and it's easy to fall into this trap of not having anywhere to go for advice or for wisdom or for mentorship. So where do you turn? That's a fundamental belief on our show, is that we want to develop not only people that aspire to be leaders, but to also come alongside the leaders that we look up to really guide us through challenging times, i.e. the pandemic or whatever that we're dealing with at the time. And so, what you're doing is a gift, and I'm really excited to unpack that today.
Well, I appreciate that. We started a networking group about 3 years ago that we call Higher Gear CIO, and it was really to meet this challenge pretty well head on. And as you just called out, 3 years later, I would tell you that the context that we're making decisions in is shifting pretty dramatically. It's not just COVID. COVID is exposing some things, though, that are going to make, I think, significant changes to how we do what we do. In my group, it's largely CIOs or technology leaders, right? Folks that are CTOs, CIOs. My title is Chief Digital Officer today. And so we've got a handful of those. We've got chief data officers. We've got chief information security officers. And like you said, I think there's a false notion out there that once you achieve that kind of title, that you got it all figured out and you know exactly what's going on. And yet you look around and you go, well, wait a minute, the world's shifting so dramatically outside of whatever preparation I've made, right? Whatever skill set I brought to the table, whatever native talents I brought to the table, whatever individual effort I've made to become more and more knowledgeable or aware or more expert, if you will, right? What do you do with all of that when the whole circumstance outside is changing? And right, if I'm in the commercial real estate business today, I'm freaking out. I think because a lot of the companies that I've talked to, the peers that I work with on these CIO networks, are saying, when the lease expires on these offices, we're just going to let them go because now we know everybody can work from home. We don't need that lease space anymore. And so we're going to see the commercial real estate guys go through what the mall owners experienced a few years ago when everybody started, you know, I'm not going to drop my kids off at the mall anymore, right? We're not doing that. The malls had to refigure, right? What are we going to do with all this commercial stuff? Um, we're about to see that same thing happen, right? But on the other side, where I live and where my peers live is now I'm making technology decisions about not an office or a suite of offices or floors or buildings, but how do I support a completely remote workforce, a work from anywhere workforce? How do I what's my technology? Where's the boundary? Where's the edge? What's the limit of what I'm responsible for? I'm not taking on all those ISPs out there, am I? Right? Those internet service providers for your house. So the boundaries are shifting. That's what I'm really saying, right? So no matter how well you thought you were prepared, you're going, okay, well, who can I talk to, right? And that's where we get back into the reality of a group like mine. The Higher Gear CIO is really a forum for us to share. One of I think your former guest, John Trainer, may have been on. And John described our group as group therapy for CIOs. And I love that because it's probably the most accurate so far. Because you're a CIO in a big corporation, and everybody is expecting you to have your superpowers and your super suit on, and you're all caped up and ready to take on the day. And yet you're going, I've never seen this before. I've never encountered this before. I don't quite know what to do because all of this change is going on. Who could I talk to? Well, let me go talk to my peers. Wait, I better not talk to my peers. That might create doubt in their minds. They might get the idea that I don't know what I'm doing. Let me go talk to my boss, right? Oh, wait, that would even be worse. I don't want him to think I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I could grab a board member and take them to lunch or have a coffee. Wait, I don't want to do that either, right? Well, I can't talk to the people that work for me, can I? Because that might not, you don't want to suggest downstream that things are not well under control. So who do you talk to? And I think the answer is you talk to other CIOs that are doing the same job you're doing, and you do it in a forum where you kind of follow those rules of, nobody's going to report on you. Nobody's going to tell anybody outside of this room what you said, how you said it, how passionate you were when you said it, right? It's a safe place for you to have these kind of conversations. Because the truth, Jeff, is it's almost never a technology problem that we wind up trying to solve to get change done or to implement new technology. It's almost always people related, right? It's almost always some kind of challenge with getting people to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it and why this is an improvement over what we were doing before. And and if you can solve that last 6-inch problem, from this side to that side, the technology turns out to be fairly easy to solve most of the time.
I think when you get into this peer group, there's a lot of opportunities to be vulnerable and say, I don't know, or I don't have it figured out. And if I could count the number of times I've heard the word unprecedented over this past year, and maybe have a nickel for each time, I'd be rich, So right now it's an important time to realize that I don't know is a perfectly acceptable response to a lot of what's going on in the world. And as an executive, you need to be able to sort that out, with peers. And so what you're doing is creating this safe environment so that you can hear opposing viewpoints, not have to create an environment where people don't believe that you have it all figured out or that they feel like you lack the confidence to lead. But in some cases, I imagine, the discussion revolves around how much of this do we share internally with our board, with our executive leaders, with our direct reports, with our company, what level of transparency is there? And also how do we, instill confidence and keep them safe and keep them moving in a direction towards our mission. So if you look at that kind of holistically and think about how do you, take what you learn and then take that back to the seat, of being the executive leader, what do you think is the most empowering aspect of that? And what what do you think has meant the most to you in terms of what you've gleaned from this group?
Well, the things that have been the most rewarding, frankly, are the connections that we've, kind of fostered over the last few years, and some of the really cool things that have happened from, making those connections happen. We had a CIO last year that had volunteered during one of our discussions that he had a great consultant for a big package software provider that had saved him literally millions of dollars over several implementations.
Mm.
I got a call from another CIO of a really big company just a few weeks later saying, "Hey, Walt, who was that guy that had the consultant?" And so connected them, and then you get a call a few weeks later from the second CIO that says, "Walt, I think that connection just saved me millions of dollars also." So,
Wow. Very
so
fulfilling.
it's that kind of community building. And Jeff, we talked the other day about the fact that here in Atlanta, we're kind of unique in a lot of ways, right? And one of those ways is that our CIO community is actually really pretty tight. We talk to each other. We talk to each other a lot. We connect and we do a lot of interesting things together. Many of us have gotten involved in supporting a number of charities. Matter of fact, Higher Gear, we gave a check last year to Richard at Inspired Edu, right? And just Power My Learning is how I think of them. But bottom line is Richard Hicks is doing some phenomenal work in our community, and many of us are participating and helping Richard with that mission. We've also sponsored some things with Must Ministries and really helping solve some of the problems that have been triggered by COVID and the lack of jobs and things like that. Food banks are really under a lot of pressure. So got a bunch of other technology executives that I used to meet with down at the food bank in Atlanta. And we package up groceries for folks, and that's different now with all the COVID restrictions. But and many of us have supported TechBridge over the years. I mean, I was a member of the TechBridge team for a while, and so when you start looking at what we do and how we do it here in Atlanta, it really is remarkable how well connected we are, how well we get along, and how much information we share with each other. I mean, I almost feel bad. Every year there's a vendor from outside of Georgia that comes in that wants to open up the Atlanta market for their company. And I've told several of them very candidly, I said, we do talk to each other here, and so if you screw it up really bad, it's not going to go well for you with the rest of us because we're all going to know.
Right.
So
Right.
be careful as you come into the market, right, that you do things the right way. And I've some of those guys have made it, and others have returned home, let's say.
Yep.
Right. And so because we do share information with each other pretty freely about what's going well, and sometimes when things don't go so well, we talk about that too. But it's a tight community. Now, in the other major tech markets, they think of themselves as more competitive, right? So and what you see a lot of, like in Dallas, where my brother's a CIO, you have a concentration of a particular flavor of business, right? And so they do all compete with each other. So they're not going to get together and share secrets and talk about vendors and employees and those kinds of things, right? And so he and I've talked over the years. He's been a CIO down there for probably as long as I've been a CIO here in Atlanta, which is a lot longer than I want to confess to. But bottom line is, he said Dallas is not like Atlanta. Richmond is not like Atlanta. New York is not like Atlanta. Boston is not like Atlanta. And so as you kind of move through, LA, Chicago, all the rest of the major tech markets, they compete with each other. They don't share information quite the way we do. And you could describe it as a Southern hospitality thing, maybe, but I don't think that's what it is, because the truth is most of us are not from Atlanta. We're not even from Georgia.
It's a melting pot.
We all came down here from somewhere else, fell in love and liked it so much we don't want to leave. And one of the things that we like about it, frankly, is the fact that this community is so tight and that we take care of each other.
And there's a beautiful marriage between the for-profit leadership and the executives and their stewardship towards our nonprofit community and the community at large, and how we're serving one another. And collectively as leaders, we really have this opportunity to influence and inspire the way other leaders provide for their communities and the impact that we can have, which is why I'm focused in this series on the leaders that are having a profound social impact through tech innovation and direct service in their community. And it's people like yourself, John Trainer, Jay Farrow, Brian Ben, Richard Hicks, people all who we've had on this show, who are all working in sync to really truly make a difference. Nicole Armstrong, everyone from the Tech Bridge team.
Yep.
It's a beautiful thing. And I truly believe as we come out of this pandemic and this time that we're in, it's going to take these leaders working together in tandem and understanding their role and their social contract to their teams and their community and even to themselves to be a good steward of that. And so it brings me to my final point and question that I have for you, Walt. You mentioned this the other day, but as a call to action and perhaps as sharing just your philosophy briefly, what does storing up your treasures in heaven mean to you, and how does it inform how you use your influence as a leader?
So, just real quickly, Jeff, I'd say the notion that you can store up any kind of treasures here on earth that are really valuable is a false one, right? When nobody gets out alive, and when you leave the body, right, you leave the flesh, you don't get to take any of that stuff with you. Now, what you do get to take is, did you bring honor into the relationships that were offered to you, right? The connection opportunities along the way. Were you helpful or were you not helpful, right? And so I think that's what storing up your treasures in heaven means. And then so many of the parables are about using your talents wisely, right? Not just burying them in the dirt in the backyard and hoping that nobody steals that. It's really about, did you engage in the marketplace with your talents and your unique skill set to make a difference on a positive way. And so by doing the things that this group that you just listed, and I'm proud to be a member of that group, I think we're all doing those things that make the most sense in that paradigm, right? When you think about storing up your treasures, I don't care about the stuff anymore. I care about the people, and then I think as we come out of this COVID thing, this is going to be more important than ever. Is this ability to collaborate, ability to connect, communicate, collaborate. Cooperation is one thing, but to really build and optimize for the future, right? If you go into a bookstore right now, for instance, and you go into that teen section, what you'll see is a predominance of books that are all about a very dystopian future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those authors don't think we're going to make it, right? They are painting a picture of the future where global cataclysms have happened and bad things, and it's a restoration thing coming, right? And
Mm-hmm.
very few books now about what used to be called utopia, right? Which is, everything's wonderful, right? And there used to be books like that that were, kind of in popular at the time, right? Everybody knows about Shangri-La, and everybody knows about, this kind of a idealistic future world that we're going to live in, but less and less so, right? And what you're seeing is people have said, I don't think utopia is possible. I think dystopia is very possible.
Mm.
And I'm sitting here in the middle going, what about optopia? How about, could we just not go to dystopia and not feel like we've got the pressure of utopia? Let's just optimize where we are. Let's just help a little bit everywhere we can along the way. And and if we do that, and if enough people will join us in doing that, like our tech community here, and many of the folks that are trying to help in the nonprofit world, I think we wind up with a much better place, right? Doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to have humans, right? So it's not going to be perfect. AI is not going to make things perfect. I hate to tell you everybody that, but I'm still looking for something real in artificial intelligence, and I'm not finding very much there. And I don't find a lot of hope for utopia. I feel a lot of hope there for optopia, though. We can optimize and reduce friction and make it easier for people to connect and do things together. And that's really, been my goal for the last few years as a technology leader.
Well, not only to optimize, but to have optimism and to have hope and to
Hope.
inspire and to look at this dystopian society and not easily get sucked into the negative and the perils of all that, but to also focus on what's possible through our collective impact, through our coordination, through our care and compassion for people, which brings us back to your point of always having conversations around people and the problems that result around that versus technology as a CIO. That's brilliantly said, and I'm so thankful that we captured that in this chat today. So, Walt, we're going to close there. If people wanted to learn more about you, your leadership, your company, where would you direct them?
Best place right now is Twitter, and I'm at Walt74.
Okay.
74 is a football number, right? So at Walt74 on Twitter. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty easy to find. It's Walter G. Carter if you look at LinkedIn. So by all means, I encourage anybody that wants to reach out, and I'm always happy to connect, and I'm always happy to help if I can.
Well, I highly recommend it. It was such a blessing to chat with you today, Walt. I'm so thankful for this conversation, our relationship, and just from the wisdom that I've gleaned from you. So thank you for your gift of time and for sharing that with us today.
Thank you, Jeff. Pleasure talking with you.